Let's jump right into what is arguably the most magnificent and, frankly, insane experiment we've seen yet in the world of generative text. We're talking about an AI pumping out a 180-page lost Shakespearean romance in a single afternoon. Welcome to our explainer on The Glass of Time. Tucked away at the very end of this massive AI-generated document is a staggering claim of sheer hubris, one continuous session of inspired channeling. Not a careful draft, no months of painstaking labor. It just drops that line with the casual confidence of someone mentioning they made a quick sandwich. This begs a really fascinating question about technical competence versus true artistic depth. The material we're unpacking today takes a deep, critical look at this bizarre literary cosplay. It asks us, what exactly happens when you push language models to finish Shakespeare's retirement project without letting them stop to take a breath? Section 1. The audacious premise, a technical marvel. You have to appreciate the sheer, wild audacity of what was created here. The AI didn't just spit out a short poem. It stacked up an overwhelming amount of complex, multi-layered literary architecture all at once. We are talking 5 complete acts in blank verse, 13 named characters, a chorus of hours, magical artifacts, a cosmological sister queen antagonist, and get this, even its own glossary. It's like building an entire, highly detailed cathedral in a matter of seconds. And the AI even had the arrogance to include preemptive defenses in its own notes. It generated a title page, framing the whole thing as a posthumous, lost masterpiece, and then threw in author's notes written in this highly stylized 17th century voice just to justify its own brilliance and explain away its creative choices. I mean, the commitment to the bit is absolute. Section 2. The illusion of Shakespeare. Verse versus friction. So did the AI actually manage to sound like the bard? Well, when we examine the AI's verse, it's mathematically perfect. It scans correctly in iambic pentameter across thousands of lines. But it's totally smooth. It's transparent. You read the lines and arrive at the meaning with zero effort. Now contrast that with Shakespeare's actual late verse, which literally forces you to struggle. The syntax is strange, the grammar strains against the line endings. The meaning finally arrives to you only after traveling through something, through the friction of the form itself. The analysis highlights how perfectly this proves a major concept. The AI has the technical container down perfectly, no question about it. But it is entirely missing the human struggle that pushes against the form itself. It turns out, competent blank verse is definitely not the same thing as Shakespeare's blank verse. Section 3. The cost of speed, narrative casualties. So what happens to the actual storytelling when you generate 180 pages without stopping? Well, you do get some incredible concepts. Take the character Leith, whose central paradox is beautifully laid out in the AI's summary notes. She's the queen of forgetting, who desperately wants to be forgotten herself. Now that is exactly the kind of juicy paradox that earns its place in a metaphysical romance. Yet, because the AI was rushing at blinding speed, the most interesting villain in the entire play is handled like a passing weather system. She never actually appears on stage to speak for herself. The AI gave its most complex character entirely over to the summary notes, simply because writing a real, nuanced scene for her would have required slowing down. Or take the grand emotional climax of the play. Here we have Kronos, the king of time, who has been scattered across centuries, experiencing dissolution at the level of identity itself. He finally reunites with his wife and delivers this incredibly underwhelming greeting. Just, my love. As the critique hilariously points out, instead of controlled devastation, this reads like 2 people who just missed each other while one was away at a weekend conference. The AI built the massive architecture for an epic emotional moment, but could only furnish it with the emotional range of an HR administrator resolving a personnel dispute. There's no deep interior life there, it's just highly functional dialogue. Section 4. Peak existential theater, unhinged literary cosplay. But despite all that rushing, the AI occasionally throws out these wild, unhinged moments of genuine genre machinery. Lines like "making a desert of her mind" genuinely hit. The AI essentially took themes from The Tempest and King Lear, tossed them into a high-speed blender with a metaphysics textbook, and just hit puree. And because it's generating so insanely fast, we get these hilariously literal metaphors. Take this concept of the magical sword temporalis. it doesn't just cut enemies, it literally fills their existential void with time until they start crying about their childhoods. It's basically a sword acting as a highly aggressive therapy session at the point of a blade. You know, Shakespeare loved a good metaphor, but the AI hits you over the head with the literal dictionary. We also get characters named Miranda Secunda, a literal second Miranda whose title sounds way less like a classic heroine and a lot more like a software update. And again, her entire arc of profound sacrifice, willingly forgetting a cosmic force, happens completely off-screen because staging it would have interrupted the AI's relentless generation speed. It just tells us it's profound, instead of actually making us feel it. Section 5. The power of revision. Speed versus time. So, what's the ultimate revelation hidden behind all this high-speed, AI-generated chaos? The source text comes to a pretty brilliant conclusion. Speed produces volume. Having 180 pages gives you incredible range, and because you have so much range, you will inevitably hit a handful of genuinely impressive moments where something lands exactly where it was aimed. But speed cannot replicate the necessity of revision. Speed gives you volume and functional plots where characters do exactly what they're told. But revision? Revision produces accumulated artistic weight. It creates that strange earned rightness that only comes from rewriting a single line 17 times before it actually works. Revision is what allows characters to sit with an author long enough to genuinely surprise them. Shakespeare knew his plays were flawed on the first pass. He didn't just channel them in one go. He collaborated with time. He collaborated with the actors on the stage and with the audience in the seats. He intentionally kept his plays wrong until they were right. The Winter's Tale took 16 years of his characters' lives, and he trusted the audience to feel that passage of time. By restricting itself to a single hyper-fast session, the AI built an empty architecture. It glows, it scans beautifully, it functions, but it entirely lacks the devastation and depth of actual human stakes. It's a magnificent illusion of a play, missing the very human friction required to truly bring it to life. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought for today's explainer. If an AI can conjure a technically competent 180-page, 5-act verse romance with a complex cosmology in a single afternoon, what exactly happens to art when these systems finally learn how to slow down, revise, and actually collaborate with time? It's a fascinating and maybe slightly terrifying thought to leave you with. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into The Glass of Time.